had repercussions in your love lives and perhaps your relationships, perhaps your way of addressing yourself and maybe sexually towards your partners as well?
For me, it was the earlier years. I think when I was from 15, 16, and I discovered pornography for a couple of years. I think for like 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Right. And how did that change everything? Just first, how it changed my my understanding or my understanding towards women, or how I act towards women. It was not necessarily that I wanted to force myself on women, but it was like I saw women as sexual objects, like for my personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
Which then meant that for the most part, I couldn't have a functional relationship with any woman because, well, 2 minutes after we're in it, I'm like, yo, why are you not doing what I want? Why are you not satisfying me? Why not pleasuring me? It's all about my pleasure.
Yeah.
You understand? And for a number of years, I went through that, and then I think I got over the pornography stage. And then after that, it was now the stage where I really had to recover from all of that, and which actually took a while.
Yeah.
One of the things that was interesting for me was that when I look back, I was like, most of this would have not been possible had I not been exposed to certain environments. Environments where I had access to either a counselor or a psychologist, or I sought professional help in some of the things. And I think what's interesting is that also there's another culture of, especially amongst, this is not generally amongst black people. Sorry, but it's true. We don't do psychologists at all.
That is way too common. It's so true. Either you're crazy or...
the way people just see you as like, something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
And I think especially for me that like in those beginning stages where I sing a counselor, I think it was at UNAM, then I went to see a friend who was a counselor, who was starting to be a counselor, and starting that conversation, and then a few years later I went to go see a professional counselor, then a few years later I went to go see a psychologist and stuff like that. Just that initial stage of actually admitting, I think I have a problem, and I think I need to talk to someone. That first initial step was actually one of the, for me, was one of the most difficult ones. Because I think once the ball got rolling, then when I went to go see a psychologist the last time, it was like, I have a problem, let me go. Yeah, it became that easy. But in the beginning, it was like, yo, who do I talk to? Where do I go? Why should I talk?
Where do I start?
Do I trust this person? You understand? And so, and I think it also in some instances as well, it's also a situation of when people go see a counselor or a psychologist or somebody, they go look for help from an auntie or an uncle.
Yeah.
Sometimes the auntie is more worried about, or the person within the family is more worried about protecting the family's reputation than it is taking care of.
Absolutely.
And that actually adds on, and that's another layer to the problem. Because now it means even when people do speak out, they are shut down.
Yeah.
Even when young boys do speak out, or where they do confide in someone, they're shut down or they're shamed, which then means that you have to suppress even further.
Yeah.
Like I open myself up to be vulnerable. Now
Exactly.
Like I need to bring it down.
Maybe
in sim to
maybe just to add to what Tuli was saying, I think because it's interesting how our journeys are quite similar. Because I think for me, the turnaround point was when I realized that what I'm yearning for in a relationship is not so much the sexual gratification, but really intimacy.
Yeah.
And that intimacy doesn't always have to be sexual.
Yeah.
And you know, and having been exposed in the line of work that I do, you learn that of issues such as skin hunger.
Yeah.
Psychologists often talk about skin hunger.
Yeah.
And they basically say that, it's interesting that when a child is a baby, they get a lot of affection and they get a lot of touch. They become a toddler, they get a lot of affection, they get a lot of touch.
Yeah.
They start transitioning into a teenager. The girl child gets a lot of touch, they get a lot of affection. The boy child is told to man up. And then that sort of intimacy from the parents, and oftentimes we always assume that intimacy must be sexual. It doesn't always have to be sexual. That intimacy is then cut. So I often think that, when you have men out there engaging in multiple concurrent sexual partnerships,
Yeah.
with men who are having serial monogamous relationships, I often assume that at the core of it, it's a man that's really just yearning for intimacy.
Yeah.
But because of his past experiences, has never learned how to experience intimacy in a healthy way, and how to
Absolutely.
seek deeper, meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that scared me. It scared the living daylights out of me when I questioned myself that, will I ever be able to have a deep, meaningful relationship with a woman beyond her physical appearance, beyond my need for sexual gratification?
Yeah.
I think that's when it started challenging me that I must start seeking deeper and much more meaningful relationships.
Absolutely.
Yet men we're not creating the space, and we're not, enabling men to be able to do that
Exactly.
in our society.
And it starts from a very young age. Like you said, with the boy and the girl child, it's done in total different means. Now, last week on the show, we had one of the gentlemen that spoke of something very interesting. And I think we as men have sexualized women. Whether it's the size of their body, their hair, their skin tone, and men in turn have been sexualized, or tall black man, or I love his legs, or I love his fingers, I love his manhood, or girls love, it's been done.
Yeah.
So in essence, how have you been sexualized as a man, and maybe in your adult life now, and how has that sort of made you feel?
Man, let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah, let's call a spade a spade.
I honestly feel and believe that men, in terms of being sexualized, we tend to do that amongst each other more than what women would do.
Okay.
Because remember, we come from a society that has taught us that as men, we should be the alphas. We should be at the forefront. We are the ones that hunt. So in terms of relationships, we are the ones that must initiate. For girls, they're told that you can't do that. And the minute you do that, if a girl does that, she's slut-shamed. So you don't have a lot of women out in our society who would sexualize women, unless they have it in their little circle of friends, and they talk about it amongst each other. Now, men, and one of the biggest ways in which men sexualize each other is we compare penises. Penis size for men has become a sort of a test to try and see how strong your manhood is. And that's why we have a society where men are so, you often have men that have deep-rooted insecurities about penis size. And yet, we have public spaces where, the urinals are so close to each other, so obviously we have to go and pee.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing this guy, he pees like this, you pee like this.
Yeah.
And you start developing little insecurities, and you then build an added myth to that.
Yeah.
Because the myth is that the alpha male is the male that has the biggest, thickest penis out there, right? And he's the type of man that would be able to have sex with a woman for 30 minutes non-stop. Now here I come with my average size penis, or even perhaps a smaller penis, and I engage in a sexual act with my partner, and she perhaps does not have an orgasm.
Absolutely.
Then it hits my ego.
Yeah.
And then I see Tuli walking by, and I can see the outprint. I don't know what you call it for women. They speak of a camel toe. I don't know what we talk about here. The camel. I don't know.
The bulge.
And he talks to my girlfriend, and then I start having an insecurity about it, because in my mind I'm like, but he would be able to satisfy my girlfriend better than I ever would be because of my deficiency that I have with my penis.
Yeah.
And that causes deep-rooted insecurities with men.
Okay, exactly. Gentlemen, we've almost come towards the end of our show, but I want to ask you, and this is something serious that we've seen in the country, violence towards women, and the question is, why is it that within our space, within our Namibian society, is it that we see violence towards women being perpetrated on such a larger scale?
Look, I think there's a lot of reasons to this.
What do you think can be done, if I may also add to that?
Yeah, and I think it's not, I can't pinpoint one specific reason to say this is the reason for all of this. But what I can say is that I think we need to recognize that there's a lot of very toxic traits within our cultures, within our families, and within our society in general.
Yeah.
And a lot of these toxic traits are either things that we inherited from our parents, from our families, from in all of these things, and the way to deal with them, and the way to deal with toxic cultures and toxic traits, so that we don't pass it on to the next generation. First and foremost, by taking responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
I always say this: when you get into a relationship, you take 100% of who you are into that relationship.
Absolutely.
You understand? Which then means that 100% of who I am is what I'm giving to my partner.
Yeah.
And if I have a lot of toxic traits, 100%, that's what I'm going to give to that relationship. That's what my partner is going to inherit.
Yeah.
And guess what? If two toxic people get together,
It's a nuclear bomb.
and they produce a child,
Yeah.
you understand? Under this thing,
Yeah.
guess what happens? You're most likely to pass on these toxic things to that specific child.
Yeah.
Hence why it's very important for us as either men or women to take responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
Forget about your person you're going to date or the person you're dating, whoever you like, whatever. Forget about other men. Forget about like everybody else. Just focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Once you start taking responsibility for yourself, and then from there you change your own trajectory, like your destiny.
Yeah.
I know this in my family. Everybody's done A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
But I'm choosing to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
The moment you do that, and in the next 10 years you have a child, you have completely managed to change like a whole destiny of a child of somebody else out there.
A generation, exactly.
You see, for me, and I agree with Tuli that there are so many different issues at play in our society that lead to, the violence that we're seeing that being perpetrated against, especially women. And I think one of these, for me, it has to do with men and how we have not enabled men to be vulnerable. And the unfortunate thing is, a couple of months ago, I said something quite bold in a public space where I said that, we've raised men in our society to have a lower IQ than what women have. EQ. Emotional quotient. Meaning that men, we are more likely to have men that have a lower emotional intelligence than women. And emotional intelligence is how you are able to dwell within your insecurities and process those insecurities in a healthy manner, in a sort of constructive manner, and get to a point that should you not be able to deal with them, you have the emotional intelligence to seek help. We've not afforded men that space, and we've not created that space for men to be able to do so. So now what we have in our society is men that are dealing with a lot of insecurities. I believe that men that perpetrate violence, especially intimate partner violence, are men that are extremely insecure within themselves. And you see these little traits, and they're very easy to pick up because I had these traits myself. So if you're the type of man that is overly obsessed with what time of the day your partner, what time of the day your partner comes home, who your partner spends time with, what type of clothing your partner wears, and you're constantly trying to put boundaries and walls around your partner to protect the partner, and then it's not necessarily, to be honest, it's not protecting the partner, it's protecting your level of insecurity that you have. So you'll find men that would literally push women away from even being able to have to be friends with people of the opposite sex. I've done this myself. So men, if you start seeing these traits within yourself, that man, I'm constantly overly insecure. I often sit at home or at work and I become obsessed with what my partner is doing. I literally try and track every little hour of her day. Where is she doing? And could there be a 2-minute opportunity for her to cheat on me? These type of men are men that have an increased likelihood towards perpetrating acts of violence. And these are the type of men that we really need to reach out to. So, I mean, my appeal to Namibian men on the show is to say that if you are that type of men that have that type of insecurity, my brother, it's time to seek help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, James, you could not have said it better. Tuli, any last words from you? I think James is almost summed it up. He's almost summed it up.
How do I go out with that? Yeah. But I mean, I think for me, it's just a thing of, look, like I said, when you are younger, things happen to you and you have no control over those things. But as you grow older, especially when you realize that you've got a problem or you've got issues or there's certain things you are not coping, you're not dealing with them well.
Yeah.
It is your response. At some point, you do not have an excuse as to why you did not take responsibility for yourself. You understand? As a child, things happen, but as an adult, it is your job and your responsibility to take responsibility. If you're a man, take responsibility. Say, look, listen, I'm not coping well. I'm not doing well. Since something is bothering me, I've got issues.
Exactly.
I'm going to seek for help.
Yeah.
I'm going to call Lifeline Childline. I'm going to search for James on social media to say, James, listen, I'm not dealing with this problem.
Exactly.
You understand? So as an adult, you do not have an excuse to not deal with things properly.
Exactly. As an adult, there's no excuse for you to also not report this, because not reporting this means that you are condoning sexual violence. From my side, Adriano, it's been a ball. It's been a blast. Thank you so much to Regain Trust, also to Men Engaged Namibia Network, as well as the United Nations Population Fund. We'll be back very soon.
Win free airtime with hashtag #LearnOn1. Share your comments on the lessons. SMS your feedback, name and town to 555. Hashtag #LearnOn1. Invite learning in.
I'm feeling so bad because of I have been arrested. We are trying to sell to provide our kids with food, but the police, they come to arrest us.
I was literally apprehended in Independence Avenue. I mean, there was no prior communications with the police or with Bonn or Benga Namibia. These guys literally just apprehended us on surprise.
And when you are talking in a manner that is exaggerated about brutality in this country, I should ask you in which country you live.
Yes, I can confirm that indeed there were 2 cell phones that were found after a search was conducted at the cells that the Fishrot accused us staying.
Do you understand the amount of money that the government has spent on the fight against COVID-19? Could they have spent 300 million on tracing people and managing people? Is that even possible?
However, these deserted spaces also pose numerous educational challenges in our country's rural areas. Because of this, many learners are denied access to proper teaching and learning. At EduVision, we believe that education is the starting point to a journey of endless possibilities.
We are going to see e-learning. Very soon. We are going.
The plan for EduVision was to identify areas in Namibia that do not have the proper learning resources, a working school or an education center.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, we are going to see e-learning. No more.
My name is Philip Smith. I'm the principal of Educate Academy in Otjiwarongo. The project EduVision, the e-learning program, started in 2017. With a project like this, obviously telecommunication, internet connection is a major thing that needs to be sorted out, a logistical challenge. And the fact that we chose Chunkwe Secondary School as the first school didn't make it easier for ourselves. It's very far from Otjiwarongo, it's far from Windhoek. So the internet connection was a big challenge first of all. So with the help of the telecommunications expert Paratus, they made this dream come true with internet connections via Windhoek, Otjiwarongo to Chunkwe and then back, the whole process. Like I said, it's interactive whiteboard, so the internet speed, capacity of the connectivity and so forth plays a major role. And so Paratus made this dream come true, and they were on board from the first moment. So very grateful for Paratus.
The project offers teaching assistance of a high standard in science to rural secondary schools within the learner's own community by means of e-learning. This entails the following: live transmissions of lessons from an equipped teacher in a different location to the students in rural areas, students using their own cell phone, tablet or computer to recall each lesson, and interactive lessons as well as the use of a smartboard as a teaching aid.
So if you look ahead at the next 3 years, we get information from the Ministry of Education. The future is very bright. So I think there's a lot of schools who can benefit from this program. Like I mentioned before, finances obviously plays a major role in a project like this. So we're very thankful for all the sponsors that are on board and still on board after almost 3 years of the project. So as long as people from the private sector can get involved, I think we can reach many schools in Namibia, because this project made a good start now. We're already seeing some positive results, and we can just call on all the private sector corporate sponsors to come on board and join in this very, very positive project.
It is EduVision's goal to prepare and guide learners in order to make the modern world they are living in accessible to all.
My name is Magdalena Nyoma. I'm 18 years old and I'm doing my first year at UNAM Commando campus, and I completed my grade 12 at Chunkwe Senior Secondary School. I'm doing education, so I'm gonna teach at Chunkwe Secondary School, because there I really need to go there and motivate the learners. EduVision helped me a lot. It assisted us in teaching for mathematics, physical science, and biology. And it also, we get to exchange learning from other schools like Educate, whereby they teach us, and that's the most thing that we benefited from. Studying without EduVision was so challenging. And when EduVision was introduced at our school, things become more easier. The time where EduVision was not introduced, we were so slow in learning. And when EduVision introduced at our school, my learning speed increases. Things were kind of boring. And when EduVision came, my mind changed the way I think. I'm really grateful for what EduVision gave us. Our class of 2019 was the first group to make it, to perform very well at Chunkwe Senior Secondary School. So it should keep up the spirit. We need that it should continue to support us.
EduVision aspires to ensure that equal opportunity is offered to every learner in rural areas to tap into his or her own potential while working in an environment which views disadvantages not as obstacles but as unique attributes that can be regarded as powerful assets when given the proper opportunity. At EduVision, we believe that dreams are the foundation of knowledge and hope always triumphs over experience.
No more problems. Everything is proper.
free airtime with One Africa TV. Share your comments on the channel. WhatsApp your feedback, name and town to 081 200 6659. One Africa TV. It just gets better.